Christian parenting.
Firstborn children make a big impact in a family system. Lots of good and lots of bad can trickle down from the top. Join us for this important conversation on Family Vision.
Hi, my name is Amy Rienow. Welcome to Family Vision with my parents, Dr. Rob and Amy Rienow, strengthening families through practical, encouraging, and real conversations.
Hi, Rob Rienow here with Visionary Family Ministries alongside my amazing wife, Amy.
Welcome back to Family Vision.
And back with our special guest, RW, our oldest son. Last week, RW, you were here with us. We talked sports and faith and family. Today, we're going to talk about the life of the firstborn child. That would be you. Now, obviously, you're not a child. You're married to your fantastic wife, Emily. You are officially launched. You are off my payroll. I could not be prouder of you and Emily. Most importantly, that you're both following Jesus. And we wanted you to get us started today just by sharing some of your perspectives on the life of the firstborn in a family. So let's start off with some of the positives. What are some of the blessings or opportunities of being a firstborn child?
Yeah, so I'd say a big one is just being the first to do things, So you're the first to watch the big kid movie. You're the first one to stay up late with mom and dad, first to get the driver's license. There's some big, milestones where you're able to do a lot of things that other siblings can't. I'd say also a benefit is just you get close with mom and dad. You're the first one, and so you get a lot of time and attention. And I remember staying up late back in the Blue House in Wheaton when all the kids would go to bed, and I'd come out and watch Fox News with mom and dad, and those are good memories. And also, too, just being a part of each sibling's life from the beginning, where you're getting to grow and, have a relationship with each one of them is really unique and special, whereas the ones coming up from the bottom only know you at the age that you are when they come into the world. So
right. Having a picture of you holding every one of them in the hospital.
Right.
That's pretty special.
If you remember, there was a talk that I think Rob's going to talk more about, but S.M. Davis has a preacher that we refer to a lot in our podcast, but he has this talk about why Satan wants your firstborn. And I was really thankful I got a hold of that teaching early, but he talks about both the privileges of being a firstborn and then the challenges of being a firstborn. And he says that a firstborn who focuses a lot on the special things, the privileges about that, will often struggle with pride. But the other thing the firstborn has that's different than the other kids in the family is extra responsibility, extra burden. And that can often lead to a struggle with bitterness. Do you relate to that, LRW? Do you relate to that? Do you remember listening to that talk when you were a kid? I don't know.
I do remember listening to the talk. And I'd say, definitely. And being the firstborn, I'd say my personal issue was the pride part, but I also knew other firstborns where theirs was the bitterness. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, where the pride fell in is where I just felt like I was always right, always in the right. So whether a sibling, confronted me with something, I would kind of throw them to the wayside because I didn't feel that they were right. Like I felt like my idea or my action was the right thing to do, or I knew what mom and dad would do at that time. And so I didn't really give way to listening or really trying to understand maybe where my siblings were coming from. I know we talked a lot growing up about trying to walk in somebody else's shoes and trying to understand more, their heart, their opinions, and what they have to offer. But on the bitterness side, I certainly had friends that would complain. It was just like, I can't believe I have to do this, or I can't believe I have to do that, or just their attitude towards, they had a hard time seeing the privileges as opposed to, they'd get caught up in just seeing all the things they had to do, or I have to watch my siblings instead of go out with my friends on a Friday or whatever it may be. So I'd say those are both the common traps. I just happen to fall into more of the pride category.
Mm-hmm. Well, Amy, you mentioned this message from Pastor S.M. Davis with this dramatic title, Why Satan Wants Your Firstborn.
Yes, it is dramatic.
So the principle or premise that we learn from that is that God wants the first things. So he wants the first day of our week. He wants the first minutes of our day. He wants the first of our income. He wants the first child of our family. God wants the leader of the next generation to follow him. So everything that God wants, therefore Satan wants. Satan wants to take the things that God wants. So Satan wants the first day of the week. Satan wants the first minutes of your day, the first of our income, and he wants the firstborn of every family because of the huge spiritual influence that the firstborn has in the family. And it's interesting, you go through the Bible and you see lots of family problems happen because the firstborn goes off the rails. They develop a rebellious, hard-hearted spirit, and then that cascades into the whole family system.
What you're saying also, I think, relates to the fact that there's a greater spiritual attack on the firstborn for everything that you just said. And I remember getting that teaching and really that resonating with me, how much we needed to pray for our W and understand that this pressure is not just a worldly pressure. There's also this spiritual attack on the heart of the firstborn that I think parents need to be made aware of.
Yeah, that there's a spiritual battle here, and you see it in the day-to-day life in your family, that your firstborn really does set the tone for how the younger kids are going to respond to things. So if mom and dad, back to our your illustration of just like simple chores or something, if mom says, okay, everybody, we all need to take 15 minutes and clean up. If the firstborn jumps up and says, all right, guys, hey, let's go. Well, the other ones will be like,
it's so much easier.
Okay, I guess we're cleaning up now, right? But if the firstborn says, oh, this is stupid, why do I have to clean up? Chances are that's going to trickle down, to the younger ones as well. So that's why there is this spiritual battle and spiritual intensity for the heart and character of the firstborn. And I was saying, your mom and I are so thankful for you and God's work in your life that you're leading the next generation of our family toward greater faithfulness. And one of the things that you've done is to try to build relationships with your younger siblings. And I wanted you to share some of the specific ways that you've done that.
Yeah, for sure. It's continually shifted and shaped over the years, just as, all of us are getting older now that I'm 23, and even now Rush is 7. At every age, it's a different look. I have a very different relationship with Lissy than I would even with Elaney or
And Lissy's
Millie.
21, Laney's 17.
Yeah, right. And so I'd say, specifically talking about the younger ones, it's simply just a matter of being interested in what they're interested in, just as the oldest. So if it's baseball cards or if it's football or whatever it is, it's getting down with them and doing the things that they enjoy. If it's, Lissy or Laney who are in, junior in high school or college, it's more of a relational. So it's, trying to reach out with a text. It's, how can I pray for you? It's, hey, can we go out to lunch sometime? And even with them too, like now that at least that I'm out of school and living life, sometimes it's just having a little bit of extra thoughtfulness. So maybe it's just paying for coffee for them when they go out, or I don't know, offering to drive or whatever it may be. So you're really just, obviously it takes a little bit of thought and intention, but Lord willing, just those little points, I try to think of it as like little points of connection. It doesn't have to be a constant stream of every other day, but, every other week, once a week, just having them on your mind and reaching out and saying, hey, or yeah.
You mentioned this thing. You sometimes will text them and just say, hey, how can I pray for you? How in the world did that all happen? And what happens? Like if you text Laney, how can I pray for you? Like I'm not sure a lot of siblings do that. So how'd that start and what does that look like?
Yeah. Well, it started as an encouragement from mom and dad, which I then took as all right, we'll try this. And over time, just like with any friendship, it just developed into a spiritual relationship. And so if I text Lissy, hey, how can I pray for you? Odds are in the next 24 hours she'll respond with, hey, I got a test coming up or whatever it may be. Or with JD, hey, I got a game on Saturday, or school is busy, or whatever it may be. And vice versa. I'll get text back like that. Like just the other week, I got a text from Lissy or about, hey, how can I pray for you? So it's hard the first couple times and it's awkward. But Lord willing, over just kind of constant period of time where there's that level of hey, how can I be thinking about you or praying for you in a certain way, that part of the relationship continues to grow. And obviously that's not as big of a part of a relationship with Ray or Rush, who are 10 and 7. But I would certainly expect that over the course of the years, then that would develop into more of a relationship.
I think that as you're talking about that, I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, how did your relationship with your siblings, get to where it is today? It didn't always look like this, right? Like, we can remember JD's speech at the wedding about the beatings and the fights and all of that.
Exactly.
So it, one thing that's, I think, is important in a firstborn's world, and you've already talked about that privilege. One of the privilege that a firstborn has is that they grow up being watched, and they grow up being watched by their younger siblings, meaning that all the things that you're doing, everyone is coming along. You are the center of attention a lot. And yet it's unusual. So that's normal. Most families can relate to that. And most younger siblings can relate to going along and watching their older sibling doing things. But what's different, and I think what we want to try to hit on in this, and how important, how God can use the firstborn, what's different, RW, is to have a firstborn come back and pour into the younger siblings. See, that's very unusual. And that's what we'd like to see in our families. We'd like to see all of that investment that the younger siblings have given for it to come back. And that didn't happen automatically. So can you talk about a little bit, RW, about, what kind of things brought that culture for you to think that way? Think about them and not just, them being a part of your life, but, vice versa,
Yeah, I would say probably the biggest catalyst of that was, one, growing up in an environment where, from mom and dad, it was communicated to me that, like, these are your best friends. These are the people that you will have a relationship with for the rest of your life. And Lord willing, a really good one. And so once, I'd say probably in high school, I caught more of the vision or idea of that and how special it was to have so many younger siblings, being sophomore of high school and having my youngest brother be born, and everyone in my high school class is like, what? Like, you have a brother? But realizing how special that was, that I have, a new younger brother. And with every one is a new opportunity, and they're a new person, and they shape our family in a different way. And also kind of taking into realization, like, things that God's given me, with a great opportunity at college or jobs in the summer or whatever it may be, that I have as their oldest sibling a unique opportunity. And even now with Emily too, who, now that we're married, have a unique opportunity together in a lot of ways, because Emily married me, she's now in some ways the oldest sister. Like Lainey and Millie very much look up to her.
They do.
And see her, and whatever she does, like, they in many ways want to follow suit or have interest at least in what she's doing. And so we now together have a unique opportunity where really some of the things that we say or how we reach out to them really can have a really big impact on the shaping of the rest of their future.
Right. And Emily's added so much to our family.
And she's wonderful.
Has, like you said, taken that appropriately, big sister sort of relationship. And then as you guys, a married couple, even in these 4 months, there's been a couple times when you've invited younger siblings over for game night or whatever. And I mean, they are like over the moon for this, that they get to go to, our Devlin and Emily's house and have infinite snacks and be a story for another day.
Yes, that will be a story for
and
another
game
day.
night. But I think it was phenomenal. So, honey, you want to talk about these letters that
Yeah,
RW wrote.
I just think that RW, you talked about going off to college, and again, we need to do definitely a part 2 on this as well. But as far as a role of firstborn, there's a lot to be said. But when your firstborn goes to college, that's probably one of the biggest transitions a family goes through. Again, because you're the first one leaving. Everyone's used to being this unit, and now all of a sudden someone is out of the house. It's changed the dynamic of the family. And you said you caught that vision in high school, and I just want to say that when we took you for that first send-off, and you unbeknownst to us, wrote letters to each of your siblings. And we sat at this dinner at Applebee's. I think it was like the only respectable restaurant we could go to that night. But that you passed out all of these letters to your siblings. And that, I think, was the moment that I really started to cry. And you gave us a letter, too.
That's when you started to cry?
No, I thought you're right. I think I started crying more. that would be, yes, thank you for that correction. But just showing that you were going to miss them and you had a special message for each of them. And I just wanted to share that because I'll never forget that. And I'll never forget the impact that those letters had on those kids and on us. I mean, just that you would take the time to do that when really most kids going through that, like you already said, it's kind of an all about you time. I mean, you're the one launching into something new, but you took the time to write those letters, and it was a teary ride back, I'll tell you, back home. I'm glad it was only an hour and a half car ride and not, 9 hours back, because it was a sad car that day. But we loved, of course, coming back and watching you play baseball and being part of your college life as well. So,
KRW, last question, and we've nibbled on this just a little bit, but you're happily married, you're on your own. How has your brother role changed? Lissy and JD are in college. Lissy will be getting married this year, but you still have your 7-year-old little brother, Rush, on the other end of the spectrum at home. What are you learning now about how to be a leader for this team of siblings that God's blessed you with?
Yeah, I'd say what I'm learning now is, obviously when you all grow up in the same house, there's a lot of points of connection. It's going to bed, it's getting up, it's meals, it's hanging with friends, it's, but now that people are more spread out, separated even with us living 30 minutes away, it requires a little bit more intentionality. And it also gives way for intentionality on both ends. Like JD can be intentional with me. I can be intentional with him. Me and Emily can be intentional with Lissy and Bond. Lissy and Bond can be intentional with us. And so really, the value of what those relationships have now fallen into our own hands as adults. And so we now are in the opportunity where, if for whatever reason, like we didn't go reach out to Ray and Rush, we probably wouldn't see Ray and Rush much. And so now, do they have a lot to offer in a intentional way? No, not right now.
Right.
So it's more of a matter of, really thinking about, well, what has God called me to? What has God called us to? It's to continue to grow and foster relationships and to love others better than ourselves, more than we love ourselves in a matter. So it's kind of flipping the switch of, if, praying that the Lord gives the desire to have those really awesome relationships with your siblings, but then sometimes it's a matter of doing the things that then it takes to have those relationships, and it's sacrificing one thing to do, hang out with somebody else so just the intentional aspect of it requires more from you.
And now you're also a younger brother in Emily's family.
Yeah,
and
which is
because
right.
you married the youngest and you have 2 older siblings now, and that's the same dynamic there too. I know you've gone on ski trips with them, and
right.
at the
Same
lake
deal.
house, it's the same
like,
thing. If you don't make the effort, right, then you're in an adult world. You have to both choose that. Right.
That's a great point. Well, RW, your mom and I love you and Emily. We are so thankful for both of you. And we talk a lot about this principle of generational progress, just something we desperately want. And by the grace of God, we see that in your life and in your marriage, that you're a way better husband than I was at your age. You're going to be much better father than me, and we just couldn't be more thankful.
Well, I know I didn't write a letter to my younger sister when I went to college, so I'll be honest about that.
But we're thankful for you and God's work in your new family, and we're just glad that you took the time to share with us today.
Well, thanks for having me.
And we need to get your bride on a future episode soon.
That would be great.
It'd be fun. We'll get all 4 of us.
She doesn't realize what she's married into.
I know.
She's married into a podcast.
Well, we want to thank you all for joining us today. You can always send your comments or questions to us at podcast@visionaryfam.com. We'd love to hear from you. And we also have another giveaway today. Our Family Worship Genesis book, Family Worship Genesis. This is a family devotional, family worship guide through the book of Genesis. It's normally $15 on our website and Amazon. You will love it. Your kids will love it. And the first 15 emails that we receive at podcast@visionaryfam.com requesting that ebook version, the PDF version of Family Worship Genesis, we will send it to you. So again, if you'd like that free ebook, first 15 requests we get for it at podcast@visionaryfam.com, we will send that to you. We're excited for our next episode with you next Monday, and thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time on Family Vision.